we get a little emotional? Can we think about who we are, what we feel, and why we should share that with the rest of the world? Because if we can, and I believe we can, it will make us better people, and it'll make the world, or at least the online world, a better place. Think of it this way. I share, therefore I am. Now that might seem a little bit melodramatic, but the fact is that sharing these days is inextricably linked to our identities, and the chances are that you share. I'm going to take a wild punt and suggest that everybody in the room has a social media profile. Maybe not so well, because like 83% of the world does at this stage, but I'm betting that at least half of the room shares a lot on social, and the other half of the room consumes a lot, but maybe doesn't volunteer so much about themselves. That's okay. I'm going to pay homage to one of the great TED speakers of before, a lady called Amy Cuddy. And Amy taught us that by being big or small in our physical gestures, we can be big or small in our minds and in our personalities. So we can be big or small in social too. And in the beginning, on social, I was very small. Very, very, very small. I was barely visible, which is a little ironic given the talk I'm here to give today and what I do for a living. So in my day job, I run the Future Foundation. We identify and measure and analyze and study the trends of tomorrow. I know what's coming next, and I know how big it'll be. But when what was coming next was the social revolution, I stood back. Now, it might not be visible to the naked eye, but I am not a Gen Yer who overnight started talking to my friends more on Facebook than I did for real. Older generations and my generation tend not to do that. Maybe they never will. And interestingly, younger generations, they do share a lot on social, but for instance, Gen Z are a bit more circumspect about what they share. Perhaps they're worried that their 12-year-old identities will follow them forever on the internet, and they don't feel like that so much. So, back to the beginning. I wasn't impressed, and I essentially thought of social media as reality TV. Bad, boring, embarrassing. I wasn't having any of it. I was far too concerned that everybody would seem way more fun than me, so I told myself I was far too busy for all that twittering online. And then I remembered, hang on a minute, Maeve, you love talking to strangers. And I really do. I'm Irish, and what that means is I'm genetically programmed to talk to strangers all the time. It's really fun. And it clicked in my mind that actually social was talking to strangers all over the world. So I stumbled in, and I thought, what the hell, I'll give this a go. And it doesn't actually matter how you start on social or why you started. What matters now is that we realize that it is an extension of who we are, of ourselves. And that's really important. Because maybe where we start to have a little bit of a problem is when there's too much noise. We know there's a lot of white noise on social, a lot of talking about nothing, a lot of posting about all the positive stuff. If it wasn't great, it didn't happen today. So lots of people only ever post about the really happy stuff. And then they start sometimes to lose a sense of who they really are, because it can spill over into the positively self-delusional. Now, that's not everybody, thankfully. And, what's the big deal in a way? Well, I think that the business of social is about real human exchange. And I think it needs to be about the quality of why we connect, not the quantity. It needs to be about why we're connecting, not how many people we're connecting to. What we're talking about, not how much we're talking. And I want the web to feel like a place where we can really express ourselves. I want the web to feel warm. And I bet I'm not the only person in the room who wants this. Hands up if you've ever had a conversation with emoji. Don't be shy. Of course you have. It's great fun. Emoji is brilliant. Let me show you this. This is emojis, emoticons, in real time on Twitter. You probably can't see the numbers. It's well into the billions. Emoji is simply Unicode for our emotional real-time selves. It is like an emotional diary. And it's fantastic because it allows us to express more feelings, deeper feelings. And it turns out that intensity really matters. So in our work at Future Foundation, we've shared our studies on emotional evolution and the warming web with an agency called Unruly. Unruly are a viral video agency, and they've studied this too. And actually, the more emotionally intense a piece of content is, the more we're likely to engage with it, and the more we are likely to share it with other people. So if you're wondering what your friends want to see from you on Facebook, it is live, emotional content. And the stronger the sentiment, the more human the piece, the more likely we are to connect. So that's pretty powerful. And the great thing about emojis is we can feel a broader range of things. We can have subtler feelings. We no longer need to like someone's cat dying. We no longer need to like the Syrian refugee crisis. We can love stuff. We can buy stuff. We can be bored of stuff. We can tell a whole story of stuff like Andy Murray did for his wedding. So remember our starting point here. I share, therefore I am. So I'm going to share a story. And in fact, I'm going to share a story that is basically about the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life. And it's called my tight trousers story. So one day, in my very first job teaching in France, I was having a particularly rowdy afternoon, but that wasn't necessarily terribly unusual. I was about 15 minutes older than all of my students, and most of my classes didn't seem to pay that much attention to me. So on that afternoon, I was thinking, whatever. But slowly, as I approached the end of the class, I just had the sense that something was wrong. And in fact, a sense of dread started to build inside me, which definitely got worse as the bell rang and this girl, who I really, really didn't like, approached my desk. I can still see her sassy face today. And she said to me, "Madame, votre pantalon a craqué." So I did this. And my first conscious thought was, Maeve, what knickers are you wearing today? Because I'd been flashing my pants at the class for the last half an hour. And then my next thought was, pull yourself together, but I couldn't do that because I could feel that the seat of my pants had split from top to bottom, and there was absolutely no recovery from this particularly embarrassing scenario. So I just pulled my coat around my waist and battled my way through the other classes and the rest of the afternoon. And then I went home and had the largest glass of wine imaginable and told some of my friends. And I laughed about it. It was, it's a laugh or cry scenario there. So I laughed. And thank God you laughed too, actually. So that was 20 years ago. And if I was telling that story today, well, it would look like this. And I could tell the whole world. And I know what you're thinking. Why would I humiliate myself to the point of infinity? Why, in 2015, would we dwell on a twisted Descartes quote? Here's why. It'll make us smarter, more savvy, more self-aware, and more socially effective. In fact, I have 5 things that I want you to think about in terms of what this will do for us. So the first reason you should share more of who you are on social is because it's cheaper. We all know somebody who's gone on a Facebook diet and who started trolling the dark web in a bid to avoid the advertising. It's too late. We cannot put the advertising genie back in the bottle, so just embrace it. It's cheaper. The second reason is because you're doing it anyway. I know you've all taken the which Disney princess am I test. Yes, boys, even the Buzz Lightyears out there, I know you've done it. And why do we do this? Of course we do it. We want to find out more about who we are and especially how other people feel about us. So we take endless daft psychology tests. So my next piece of advice is if a brand or a company asks you to do this, go for it. Here's one. This is Reebok. And it might ask you a question or a series of questions like this. It takes 30 seconds, and what do you know? You might find out you're a brain buff. How cool is that? Now, there's actually quite a bit of psychology behind that little test. And in some cases there will be, and in others there won't. But it doesn't matter, because it makes us curious. But more than that, it makes the brand curious. And it means that whoever is advertising needs to notice who you are and what makes you tick, instead of just the commercial message that makes them tick. The next reason is the bad stuff. So we know about all the positive stuff, too much about the positive stuff. What about the bad stuff? Well, we have serious issues like cyberbullying, and I know that can make us very sensitive, and I am not glossing over that for an instant. But just like in the real world, mostly the internet is a kind place. We are not mean. We are usually not mean on the internet. There are no mean emojis, I think. So share the sad stuff, share the difficult stuff. Because by doing that, you're teaching the rest of us how to develop real empathy. And it brings more depth to our social conversations. Now, I know that the next tricky point is this emoji business again. What if you're thinking, I know I'm going to have to exaggerate wildly, amplify everything through emoji just to get my point across? Well, I don't believe that is going to be the case. Remember, it's about real exchange, authentic exchange. And actually, one of the things that we really want from technology in the future is for it to teach us how to be our best selves. We want the internet through artificial intelligence to teach us how to be better in the future based on all of the things that we actually do today. And soon that will be possible. And in fact, as well as that, we will have artificial emotional intelligence. If we can tell and share socially how we feel, in the future we will know more about things like who we should date, what career we should have, what we should consume, how we would live emotionally balanced lives based on our emotional tendencies. How fantastic would that be? And the last reason is because of this. It'll make us a better person. This is the EXO network. It was born earlier this year, and it's a very simple concept. It invites us to post our gratitude to others. It asks us to say thank you to someone or something that has brought about some nice social impact. And anyone can instigate this, a person, a charity, a brand that wants to drive us towards greater social good. And it doesn't matter what you feel strongly about. Maybe your deal is animals. Well, you can pay to protect one, and you can tweet one of these emoticons and save your favorite endangered species. Or maybe you're into politics. CNN have just brought out a range of emojis for the 2016 presidential candidates. So maybe the next American president will in part be elected thanks to emoticons. But again, it doesn't matter what it is that you care about. What matters is that you care, that you feel, and that you show that you feel. Because facilitating human brilliance drives us all to connect in better ways, and it pushes us towards greater social good. The web is warming up. Emojis are just getting started. And emotional intelligence, it's on its way. And that's a really great thing. Because if we want brands to stop selling us stuff that we don't need, and if we want to connect to people over really cool things, and if we want to express ourselves in new and different and creative and interesting ways, then we need to allow our online lives to make our offline lives better. So find your ego, tell the world how you feel, get emotional, and believe that we share, therefore we are. I believe it will make the world a more enterprising place, a more curious place, and ultimately a warmer, more human place. So I'm going to carry on sharing with virtual strangers, and I hope you'll join me. Thank you.